Good evening, Interworld. Sergeant Slack here from Banana Bomb Productions. Now, this was going to be a little video about how to install a CPU cooler into your computer, but the footage, as you're about to see, is, well, as you can see, is just rubbish. It's just absolutely horrendous. I got halfway through editing it, and I was just like, this doesn't work. But luckily, I had also planned. Now, this is the Dark Rock Advanced Cooler, which reckons that it's only 18 dB. So let's have a little look at it compared to my other one, and then we'll run some tests to see if it actually does what it says on the box. Alright, so that's the old one removed. Let's compare that to the new one. I've gone for the Dark Rock Advanced C1 because it claims to only have 18.8 dB in terms of noise generated at full load. It does have as well a massive 180 watt TDP, which is grand because my processor only requires 90. So inside the box you get a thing of all the gubbins, and you get actual tower cooler itself, which is freaking huge. I mean, look at the comparison size to the other one. Like, it's got one of those big, like 6-inch fans, and overall, it's just pretty damn huge. It's got a number of better things than my current one. Yeah, it's bigger. It's got a quiet fan rather than whatever this cheap nonsense is. And it has these rubbers securing it both to the fan itself, they're just kind of held on by rubbery bits, and then to the cooler as well, which just kind of slips on there, which, yeah, curious to see how effective this actually is. Let's just have a little bit of a mock-up. Oh, we've lost our protective cover plate already. Let's put that back on. And that's going to go boom, and might not actually fit inside the case. So yeah, it might not actually fit inside the case, which it doesn't actually. The case front is half hanging off here. But does it actually run at 18 dB? Now this is kind of difficult to test without a decibelmeter, and I don't have a decibelmeter, but I mean, this is all the nonsense you get. You get a bunch of backplates. It fits LGA 155 nonsense, which is what I've got, and it also does AMD. It does a whole bunch of stuff. But does it actually do what it says on the tin and make things quieter? So, peruse the next ones at your leisure. I've tried to keep the volume there. The first run, as it'll be labelled, is my old, I think it's an Alpenfohn cooler. And you can see it runs for a while, but you'll see why when you listen to it. It gets super noisy and super old. And the first one, well, let's see. Does it do what it says on the tin and run at like 18 dB? Alright, so that's a horrid noise, isn't it? That's what I have to listen to when my PC gets up to 100% load, which it has been doing with streaming. It's kind of like streaming that's prompted doing this, doing OBS and the other stuff as well, has made that happen. So now the beast is installed. Let's listen to that under the same full load and see how that works. So, as you can hear, that's pretty damn quiet. Now, it's difficult to tell you definitively without a decibelmeter, but I can tell you that from straight off the camera audio footage, the Be Quiet was minus 31 dB, whereas at its loudest, the Alpenfohn was minus 17 dB. Which is a 14 dB difference, which is quite a lot. Now, that's with the rattliness. Without the rattliness, it was more like 24, 25 dB, which gives us like a 5 or 6 dB drop, which is to be expected. The Alpenfohn's rated to be to be 30 dB, which means that it should be about 10 dB louder than the Be Quiet, and I found it to be about 5 or 6 dB louder, but that's not accounting for the terrible, I mean, look at that exhaust fan there. That's a terrible little tiny fan, and the case fan on the front is a big old 120mm. It's not a quiet fan, I'll tell you that. Like, on its own, it's just too noisy to get an accurate reading, but it does certainly seem to be whisper quiet. I mean, you heard it there, and that was under full load. And I'll show you what I've been doing for testing right here. Okay, so for testing, I was using that hardware monitor over on the left there, which shows you fan speeds and core temperatures. I got CPU-Z at the top and core temp at the bottom, because the big thing I've noticed is a huge drop in temperatures. Before with the Alpenfohn, the cooler, just on idle, the CPU was running at more like 50 degrees C. I'm using CPU-Z to spam it up to 100%. But even with that, the temperature only gets up to sort of like the mid-50s. Before at 100%, I would have been up at like 70 or 80 degrees C. So, and here, it's just, I mean, it's just chilling on like 700 RPM and keeping toasty. There is like 5 degrees of variance. It goes from like 50 degrees to like 56 degrees across my CPUs. But even there, it sat under full load for all this time. It didn't get any louder, it didn't get any faster. So the low RPM on that fan of 700 and 400 at idle, and yeah, just how effective that cooler is with the size of it, does actually work. So should you get yourself one of these Be Quiet ones? If you want a quiet PC, then yeah, I heartily recommend it. You know, it does certainly seem to do what it says on the tin. And it does what it should do. Now, there is one thing I will say, is when I first turned it on, there was a cacophony of beeps that sounded quite like this. So that was a post-test. When I actually turned it on with a monitor attached and looked at it, it was a BIOS error. And the BIOS was saying that with my fan only running at 400 RPM, which is its idle speed, that there was a problem with the fan. So I've reconfigured the BIOS to ignore what speed the CPU fan is. So if you're getting horrible beeps once you've installed one of these bad boys, it's because your BIOS is just confused by how slow your thing is running. And I will have to get my hands on a decibelometer at some point and disconnect all the other noisy fans, but it certainly seems to be installed and doing its job, which makes me happy and makes Cece happy too. Look at her there. Aww. So, there's a Sergeant Slack from Banana Productions saying thanks very much for joining me for this. Please do comment, like, subscribe if you did, and I will catch you next time. Ta-ra.
Bye-bye.